Hello. Thank you very much for this invitation. It is truly quite fascinating to be here among all these leaders of landscape architecture and with you. The 1996 Declaration of the Landscape Architecture Foundation established very clearly concern for poor environmental conditions, social inequalities, and loss of quality of life prevalent in most North American cities at the time. It was a timely and valorous call, a moral outcry by landscape architecture leaders of the time. To be sure, many United States cities have, in these past 50 years, upgraded their levels of air quality, decreased their contaminations of soil and water, and improved their public open spaces. And many of those actions are here by many of these authors and participants. Many of these cities have rehabilitated and repopulated their city centers and improved their habitability in general. However, many other challenges and global concerns have now arisen, including climate change, the horizontal expansion of cities, and in the US, still the highest levels of consumption per person in the world of natural resources, including energy, land, and water. Just in the US, 573 liters per day per person of water. In Africa, 52. In Mexico, 200. So this is how resources are being distributed in the world. 50 years ago, Latin America had few landscape architects and not a single organized professional society or specialized school. Today, fortunately, there are several schools of landscape architecture and with master's degrees, and in the region, there are 16 professional associations. Of course, in the 60s, we only had very few landscape architects, but fortunately we had Roberto Burle Marx and Luis Barragán. So sometimes quality is more important than quantity. However, in these past 50 years, the damage of the environment has grown exponentially with the certification and loss of many ecosystems, including enormous chunks of Amazon jungle, rainforests, wetlands, and mangrove swamps. Deterioration affects not only local and regional communities, but environmental conditions at the global level. Just to give you an example, in Mexico, between 300,000 and 400,000 people abandon their land because of soil degradation, erosion, and salinization each year. The urban environment in Latin America has seen a phenomenal expansion in these last 50 years. Today, Latin America has 66 metropolises of more than 1 million inhabitants and 5 megalopolises with 10 million inhabitants or more. These are Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, and Lima. Although many landscape architects have participated in government and private and social organizations, the numbers are small, disproportionately small compared to the relative phenomenon of environmental problems and conditions of large numbers of urban dwellers. This is absolutely unacceptable. While there are 150,000 architects in Mexico alone, fewer than 1,000 architects work in the country. So this is one aspect of Mexico City. As you can see, this environment didn't exist 50 years ago, but this is also Mexico City. This is Chapultepec Park and all of the systems of natural parks that we have been working on in the last 12 years. So there is hope. I mean, it's only a matter of decision and participation. In addition to the lack of public space and equality, for instance, the problem today in Latin America is of urban mobility. The Urban Development Bank of Latin America studied 15 metropolises and found that these cities had deep problems of congestion and contamination, with 24 million cars, 1 million buses, and over 500,000 taxis. The inhabitants lose more than 100 million hours a day just in transportation. And we just saw somebody that talked about that. Most of the global urban expansion in the next 50 years will be in the so-called developing nations, China, India, Latin America, and Africa. But already, according to The Economist, developing economies today surpass developed economies or the so-called rich countries, including the US, Europe, and Australia and New Zealand. In multiple indicators like consumption, exports, imports, oil, steel, 75% of all the steel is consumed by the developing world, and likewise with cement. In 2011, subscriptions to mobile phone services in the world topped 82% in the developing world, and 52% of all purchases of motor vehicles occur in these economies, which is good and bad, of course, as you can imagine. I mean, millions and millions of cars are being brought into the developing world. So the issues are mobility, water, open space, equality, and densification, planning, sustainability, etc. In 2010, as you can see here, emerging economies account for 46% of the world retail sales, 52% of all purchases of motor vehicles, catastrophic, 82% of mobile phone subscriptions. Therefore, reflecting on these issues, and for the next 50 years, our call or declaration must of course be global, because much of the environmental impact and urban growth is happening in the developing world. Yes, the Eurocentric and US-centric visions must change if landscape architects aspire to influence in meaningful ways the development of urban places and the viability and conservation of world resources. Green technologies, sustainable societies and cities, and the green economy are terribly relevant to our means of aspirations and are a powerful tool from landscape architects. The profession of landscape architecture is a major player, a means to achieve environmental justice, social equality, and avoid urban and rural marginality. By the way, there are still 45 million from the US Census Bureau, 45 million people under the poverty level, in the United States alone. More than 2.5 times the size of Mexico City. A green economy and technology can provide jobs, that's very important, and generate new economies and synergies. For instance, in 2015, Mexico exported more dollars in the agro industry than in the petroleum or tourist industries. Landscape architects must be educated, enabled, and fit to lead, and the word is lead, an authentic and urgent green evolution for a sustainable, viable, just planet. Substantial numbers of candidates for degrees in landscape architecture will need to study in North American and European universities and return to their respective countries. Not stay, return. The Landscape Architecture Forum can document, distribute, disseminate successful interventions by many landscape architects, where landscape architects have improved and positively transformed their communities, environments, landscapes, portions of cities, as well as people's lives, particularly in developing countries. And finally, let me finish with a note I read yesterday in the airplane from an article in a Mexican newspaper. And it's the Brazilian theologian, philosopher, writer, former Franciscan priest, and eminent ecologist, Leonardo Boff, demands to change the modernist paradigm of power, conquest of cultures, and domination of nature to a paradigm of an ethical dimension, the paradigm of care to establish an allegiance with the earth. For both, it is time to listen at the pain of the earth and to listen to the cry of the poor and to reorganize ourselves to inhabit the common house in a way that everybody can fit. Thank you very much.